Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner, brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner. I am one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparero, and I have two guests with me today, and I am very excited because they're returning guests. One, he was on with Byron before for 2 episodes. This is actually the third time that Jude Doyle is back on the podcast, and we also have returning Caitlin Yarsky. So Jude, Caitlin, how are the two of you doing today?
I'm really well. I'm so excited to be back. I'm excited to have not flunked out the first 2 times.
I know Caitlin, you and I, when you were on before, we got to talk about Living Hell, which I just absolutely adored. So that was a lot of fun, and I loved all 4 issues of that series. But the two of you are now working together on a new book that comes out March 18th, 2026. It is called Dead Teenagers. I got to read the first issue. I have so many questions that I know, because I don't want to spoil anything, that I can't ask while we're recording. But what a fun, that's like the first thing that jumped out at me. Like, what kind of like a fun story to figure out what exactly is going on. And I mean, talk about a first issue comic that leaves you in a place where I am in like a high state of anxiety to get issue 2 and find out what happens next. But why don't you tell listeners what Dead Teenagers is all about?
Dead Teenagers is about 5 friends who are going to prom in 1997 again and again and again in a seemingly infinite loop, and they are killed by a new horrible creation every prom night, and they are trying to figure out exactly how they got stuck in this liminal zone and what, if anything, is going to shift it.
Yeah, I really liked, I mean, trying to figure out where I like was in the story, like what exactly is happening, is like the first couple of pages kind of revealed themselves. I thought was a lot of fun. And I mean, Caitlin, I wanted to ask you, because there is a series where, because it's a loop, we see how some of these loops end in really horrific ways. I don't even want to spoil any of them, because like as I got through each panel, it was like so much fun. But you know, Caitlin, coming off of like Living Hell, where you got to do, you know, some things that were, well, for lack of a better word, like hellish, but then to really like some of the things you had to draw in this, like what was your experience having to like dig in and it's so hard to talk about some of these things that you had to draw, but like they seemed very different than some of the other stuff maybe you've done before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of absurdism and gore, but also kind of like cartoon gore, like what do they call it in movies? It's when it's like gory, but it's not like serious.
Yeah, it's like slapstick violence almost.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some of that, but you still want it to be serious enough that you go, oh, I hope they get out of this, but you don't want it to be like traumatizing to look at. So it's kind of like riding a little bit of a line there. But yeah, there've been a lot of twists and turns where like at every couple pages I'm like, oh, we're doing that. Okay. Wow. Never drawn that before. But it's been a fun challenge.
So Jude, I'm assuming, if the story originally kind of started with you as the writer, what was the reason that you wanted to, start this in 1997? Was there something about the culture or the time where, that you wanted to focus on that era? I'm just kind of curious, because I graduated high school in 1997. So that's my senior prom.
Yeah, I'm class of 2000, so I'm a tiny bit behind you, but not really. And it was the 90s were like, I was a teenager and I was super into horror movies. And when I think about bad slasher movies, like instinctively, I want to locate them there. Like, I mean, not even like Scream was good because it was self-aware, but then there were a whole lot of like post-Scream ones, like Urban Legend or whatever, or like,
Yeah, I saw them all. I saw them
yeah.
all.
Like,
Yeah.
I still know what you did last summer, and yeah, apparently you can't just like kill a guy and then get away with it multiple summers in a row. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that to me was like, if I'm going back to adolescence, I don't think I could tell you what it was like to be a teenager in any other decade. But I also just like, I wanted to work from a familiar vocabulary, and like stupid teen slasher movies up to about 1997. Those are the rules that I know. After that, everything gets more advanced and complicated, and it scares me because I'm old. But yeah.
No, I like instantly. It's just in terms of me, like I said, like I graduated high school in '97, so I
Yeah.
was right into it. It was like prom 1997. Once I recovered, from the initial the triggering response of remembering senior year 1997, and I was able to push that aside. I was able to stuff it back down until the next time I went to therapy. I was able to really enjoy the fun of the comic, and I don't say that flippantly. I love therapy; it's great.
Yeah.
There's like a movie called Eighth Grade or something, and I can't watch it. I'm
No.
like, it would not like something about middle school is just like the worst years of your life, and everyone is so horrible to each other that I'm just like, I cannot watch that movie. I'm sure it's really good. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, there is something about it when there are those moments that just, I don't know. I think everyone has them, whether or not it's middle school or high school, that just kind of, haunt you at times. But yeah, that just, it was fortuitous when I read it. It just instantly took me into it. And I thought, oh, that's fun. This is my senior prom. Like, this is like, I get this time period. But beyond that, what I really loved Alicia's voice, because I think that's the character who kind of you're kind of reading the narration of,
Yeah.
and I really liked her. I really liked her approach to, and I really liked the dialogue in terms of getting the reader into the story, helping the reader kind of figure out exactly what's going on. I kind of like how she was letting you know what happened in the different versions of the loop with the characters. Like there was like an awareness, like almost a dryness to how she was saying it, that I found very funny at times, even though these terrible, horrible things were happening. So instantly felt that I just connected to that character. And yeah, it's just, was there, in the development of it, was there ever a thought in terms of centering it on somebody else, or was there something about like what you felt you needed from the character of Alicia to kind of propel the story forward?
Well, I think you're talking about Alicia's sort of like over it quality, and I think that is really interesting. Well, I'm not going to say my own writing is interesting. I think it's important, as perhaps generationally important, but it's important as a way to get us into the narrative, because we start it sort of like they've already been through something like 18,000 loops together, so they've already been in this zone for about 20 years by the time we meet them. And I wanted to capture that thing about, I mean, I think another reason I said it in the 90s is that, like, I think most of us who are that age have the experience of looking back at our own growing up and going, wow, that was not normal. That was not, I would not approve of that if my kid was going through that today. And I wanted her to be someone like that, someone who was just like so used to living with this ridiculous amount of violence in her life that it almost didn't even register anymore. It was just like the daily grind. But I think that the thing about high school and certainly pop culture about people in high school is that like you tend to start with characters slotted into their neat little roles. And Alicia is like the most normal character compared to everyone else. She's the most centered, she's the most grounded, she's the most quote unquote relatable. And as the story moves forward, I think I can say that the loops get knocked a little bit more off kilter, and we're kind of left spending more and more time with the characters who aren't so normal and aren't so well adjusted and aren't so used to having their stories centered. I think there's 5 people in this for a reason. Hopefully every one of them gets, enough space for you to understand why they are who they are and what it means for them to survive growing up.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I think that I'm curious to see, because I really like, all the characters. I think you have a very interesting cast of characters here to see, what eventually may or may not happen to them. I really felt the mystery of the whole thing was, I like the idea of trying to, this is a comic that the wheels are spinning in terms of trying to get ahead of you guys, where I'm just trying to be like, well, what is it? Is it a video game? What is happening? Is it some type of, what is the reason for the time loop? Like, what is, I love trying to do that aspect of it. And I just feel like there's just enough little things in this to were so interesting. Yeah, I really loved it. And I went into it, I think Byron had first posted about it on social media and he was excited about it. And I said, and Byron has been taking a break from the podcast for a bit. So he was the one like, oh, I think you should reach out to Jude and Caitlin about it. But I didn't read anything else about it. I just said, all right, if Byron says it sounds great, okay, sure. Whatever this is, dead teenagers, let's go. And I went in totally blind, and I just thought, yeah, it was a real blast. Like, and I haven't had that much fun in a while with a comic and trying to figure it out. And what the deeper, I usually on the podcast, especially with something that we don't want to spoil, it's tough to talk about, themes and what you're trying to get at in one issue, but it's definitely something that I can't wait till it all plays out and see where it goes.
And I mean, this is like Caitlin's art does so much of the work here because it's so hard to write something that is both fun and scary at the same time. Normally, like it's like, oil and water. They have to, like, the funny parts have to be really funny and the scary parts have to be really scary. And it's so hard to do that tone. But Caitlin was able to do this thing where like every one of the gross parts is genuinely gross. She just sent me a picture of a clown that's gonna haunt my dreams, for years.
Response to that, by the way, it made me laugh really hard.
I think you've summoned him. I think he's like an important entity. You brought him forward into our reality. But but it's also just it's bright and colorful and fun to read, and like the character acting is really good. I just think you really knocked it out of the park. It's beautiful, beautiful.
I mean, it was easy. Like, the story is so much fun and so crazy and intriguing that it wasn't hard to like get lost in it. So it was a blast.
But Caitlin, was your approach to this different than like other comics? Do you always have the same approach when you sit down to like work from a script? Or, I mean, in terms of like, how was the collaboration between the two of you, for this story, Caitlin?
I mean, it's always different, because everybody works a little bit differently. Jude had some really great reference docs that he sent over, so I got to I had like some, I had like a starting off point, which was great, and it was a very different vibe than anything else I've ever worked on, I think. So it was a nice change of pace, and also, I mean, I graduated high school in 2003, but I still remember the 90s pretty vividly. So it was kind of definitely in like in my wheelhouse in that way, where I was like, oh yeah, I know this fashion, I know these like this time period pretty well. And yeah, and I agree. I think there's a lot here that kind of alludes to all the things that we dealt with growing up that weren't part of the conversation and just in like in social circles or in anything, because it just wasn't like, it was kind of pre-internet, and it just wasn't normalized yet. So there's a lot of like trauma and a lot of things that people would just kind of like just gritted and bared, because they didn't know how else to deal with it. Like nobody, like therapy wasn't normal. Yeah, it wasn't a thing. That was like, if you did therapy, you were like, people looked at you weird. It was like, you couldn't, people were embarrassed to say they did it. And now it's like, if you don't do it, it's a red flag, So, yeah, definitely different time. But
No, yeah, that definitely a different time. Yeah. So when you are working on some of the, I guess the more the grislier scenes of this, and I'm curious, what were some of the reference? Was it in terms of like the fashion of the day?
yeah, it was the fashion. It was, you know, it was like I Know What You Did Last Summer, kind of like thrillers and slashers and things like that I actually had to kind of like look into a little bit, because I didn't really watch a lot of those. The closest I have is like WB stuff from, like Buffy and Charmed and things like that. I mean, Buffy's like very close to my heart, which is, I mean, creators aside, but the story is like, I know that universe inside and out, and it has a lot of similar themes in terms of like, uh it opened up a lot of dialogues at the time, and it also like kind of strode that like line between horror and comedy really well. So there was that. And then I remember, like, my stepmom told me this, and it's a little embarrassing to admit, but like, uh um Goosebumps got me really into reading. And that was kind of like the proto, like, dead teenagers kind of slasher stuff, right? Like, there's constantly killing kids and teenagers all the time. It was like Goosebumps, and then you graduate to Fear Street. Fear Street. Yeah.
And Christopher Pike. No, R.L. Stine is from my hometown. So he was really held up to us as like, one day, kids, if you work really, really hard, you can be just like R.L. Stine.
Oh my gosh. He's really prolific. I mean, I remember being afraid of the bathroom for a really long time, because he was constantly killing cheerleaders in the bathroom in like a really creative, horrific way.
I think that's a common fear, for the fear of the bathroom. For one reason or another. My brother Bobby, who is the Cryptid Creator Corner's #1 most dedicated fan, my brother Bobby, also class of 2000, listens to all my episodes. He's going to kill me for telling this story. But when Bobby was a kid and when we lived, when we'd moved to a new house, I mean, I say he was a kid, but I think he was, by the time we moved, he would maybe 8, 9, or 10. If he had to use the bathroom upstairs, like at night, he would want somebody to sit on the top step outside the bathroom. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
Dead Teenagers is really good. I'll make sure to get a copy for you and put it in our pull list. But yeah, he's going to be mad about that.
I'll tell my fraternal bathroom story. For my brother and I, it was the Tapeworm Man episode of the X-Files, where there's just like the man-eating tapeworm in the sewers.
Yeah, Fluke Man, right?
Just like stick the handle of the plunger into the toilet to make sure that there were no tapeworm men in there.
Yeah. No, that was a terrifying episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And because this is 1997, can we play some 1997 trivia? Does anyone know what the according to Billboard's year-end Hot 100 singles of 97, what the #1 song was?
Was that the year of the Macarena? Or no?
No, Macarena, I believe, is earlier.
Macarena is probably 96. I'm going to say 96. Maybe I'll get called out by the historical accuracy fans. Who had the hot
I did
scene?
not know this. This surprised me that this was. I just went on Wikipedia to their year-end Hot 100 singles of '97. I was very surprised by. I never would have got this, but I'll throw it out there to see if we have any
Wait, was it Spice
music
World?
fans. It was not Spice World.
2 misses in a row. I'm really I'm reminding my own credibility here.
It was not another good guess. It was not Savage Garden. It was Candle in the Wind 1997 by Elton John.
Oh, yeah. All right. I didn't really think of that as a jam, but I guess that was a popular. It was a mom jam, I think. Yeah.
I think so. I think so. But yeah, I was curious as to, because I was thinking of music and thinking of like, I was trying to remember like what songs were played like at my prom, like what were we, and so I don't really remember. The things you have to look up as a writer. Well, I guess it's the same with artists and you can't. I guess it's the same with an artist, Caitlin, in terms of the things you might have to Google for, for reference.
Yeah, like definitely like fashion magazines, catalogs, just like all those commercials that everybody remembers, like the jingles to and everything for like kids' toys and weird snacks that don't exist anymore.
Were you, Caitlin, did I actually send you this, or did someone constrain me when I was just sending like terrible outfits from teen movies? Like every terrible outfit Jessica Alba wore in Never Been Kissed. Where she's just like, she's going to science class and she's got like a crocheted bikini top and it's lime green, and then she's got like bright neon lime green bell bottoms. Every scene she's in a different all neon outfit, and it's terrifying.
Yeah. The bright colors, like the Clarissa Explains It All kind of color palette was like,
yeah,
it was a lot.
Just like for Brandy, who's one of the characters, and she's sort of like the party girl, and she's also like the token popular girl, because I don't think a lot of these kids were that popular. Yes, look, Jessica Alba.
Yeah, listeners, I just jump scared everyone by doing screen images from Jessica from Never Been Kissed, and yeah, Jessica Alba, and that's an outfit. That's something.
Oh, I forgot that it's like paisley, or it's possibly snakeskin, but it's deeply patterned, and it's just like an unfortunate combination of colors. There's a belly chain, there's a lot happening. There's a full gallery of her over there. She's a fashion icon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's chokers though. I think chokers are cool.
Chokers, we should bring back the chokers. Although now I have an 8-year-old daughter, and like they all dress like cool girls in 1994. Like they're all wearing like chokers and like t-shirts under their dresses and floral prints.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's fine. That's,
even kids slightly older, like my 13-year-old, she had on kind of like baggier jeans, and I don't think the boots were Doc Martens, but they looked like Doc Martens, and like a short t-shirt and a choker. And I'm like, you look like your mom in 2002. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Is this popular?
It's such a jump scare where you're just like walking around and you see a teenager who looks like they came out of a CK1 ad. They're just like walking. It's like, that's a time traveler. I've fallen back into the loop, and I'm confronting my own past now.
Yeah, that's my only like lighthearted beef with Gen Z is when they're just like millennials or Gen X like want to be like us, and I'm like, You guys are dressing exactly how we. Who's copying who here?
Oh yeah,
But enjoy yourself. I mean, I'm happy for you.
yeah, absolutely. I had no idea when we started this that we were going to be talking about the fashions of 1997 and
Oh no,
reliving those
this
high
is the
school
deeply
days.
like I love teen media, but I also just like I love the historical time capsule of it where you can see like everything that was regrettable about the decade. And I really wanted to capture that. I wanted to be like, this is the 90s, and it's not the 90s that's been curated. This is like pleather pants,
Yeah,
snakeskin jackets. Somebody saw the Matrix and now they're dressed like, you know.
yeah, like Keanu. I'm obsessed with the idea that, like, do you know when you're in it, like how regrettable it's going to be? You know, like when
Mm.
like when we like in the 90s and we looked back at 20 years ago in the 70s and we're like, oh my gosh, look at that, some of that fashion and how terrible it was, why was this paired with that? And then like you look back and I'm like were there people that knew that like Color Me Bad, like they didn't look good, right? Like their music, their music was fine, but like how they dressed, like that, realized that that fashion was just like not great? Or is it just like in the moment you don't know that's what people are doing and it's fine? I'm kind of obsessed with that idea. Like, will we do we look back at the 2000s and see how regrettable some of that stuff is in 2040, or we're going to be like, what were we doing in the 2020s, guys? What were we thinking?
Yeah, I'm having the opposite effect. I watched Waiting for Guffman, which is like 1994 because Catherine O'Hara died. And I like Corky St. Clair is supposed to be, this very regrettable, pompous, like I came from New York and now I'm, directing community theater. His fashion's
Yeah.
supposed to be terrible. He's wearing like a halter sweater vest, and a turtleneck, and it's a great look. I would wear any one of his looks.
We quote that movie at my house all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love all of those movies, but yeah, Waiting for Guffman's amazing.
Yeah.
The I hate you and I hate your ass face. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna bite my pillow. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, he goes from 0 to 60 a lot, Corky does. He turns on people. But yeah, like I think that that's kind of the thing, is that like you can look back at all of this and you can regret it and you can poke fun at it, or you can like give yourself grace and be like, you know what, that was the best available at the time. I wore 50 shirts on top of each other throughout the 2000s because that was what we did, because that was how you showed that you were a rebel. And I don't judge myself for that. Those were the choices that were available to me. And now with the wisdom of adulthood, I can wear only maybe like 3 or 4 shirts, and that's enough for me,
Yeah, like 3 or 4 shirts all together, or
Yeah.
3 or 4 shirts at once.
Yeah, I'm not going back to single shirts. I've lived through the 2000s.
I think about how arbitrary fashion is, and just like just in general, like throughout the decades, like I just think when people like, I'm at the age now, right, where I'm like looking at what the kids are doing and I'm like, why are you doing that? But I'm like, it's also just like, it's all arbitrary. It's all the same nonsense. Like it just kind of cycles into like, we haven't done this in a long time, so let's do that. And it's just like, and then suddenly 10 years later, that's not cool anymore. And I'm like, none of it makes sense. It's all arbitrary.
Yeah, it's all just people trying to find their place in the world and trying to be what the world wants them to be. And eventually you get to a place where you're like, I understand. I too know human insecurity. I also want to be loved. I would wear that if I thought it would make people love me. That's fine,
Yeah. Yeah, at the end of the day, that's all it is. We're just doing what we can because we want to be loved. Yeah, I don't doubt that. To get back to talking a little bit about some of the other stuff in Dead Teenagers, other than the 90s slasher influence, and this is a question for both of you. What other either, films or other particular aesthetics like influence the development of the comic?
I was really trying to pull from what I loved about the entertainment I loved in the 1990s. There was a lot of like overly smart teenagers, not just in movies, but like in comics too. Like I was a big like X-Men person, and I loved the X-Men because they were superheroes where like 80% of a script sometimes would just be them like hanging out and like making salad and talking about their lives. Like I love the willingness to just slow down and shoot the shit. Um I loved the brightness and the color of it. Some of this is going back even further back into like the 80s. Like I was thinking about how if you look at cheap horror from the 80s, so much of it looks better than like anything that's made today because they had like no budget, but what they had was a willingness to like light everything in bright neon lights and just like make it really visually strange and spectacular to distract you from how cheap it was. So like the brightness and the color of it and the dynamic quick pacing of it. The 90s was when people really liked to be talky. I'm starting to like really regret that I emulated that because now we're like doing layouts and I'm like, oh my God, I wrote so many words for this page. But yeah, I wanted to sort of have that tone, not to rip anyone off, but like I wanted people who grew up with this stuff to feel comfortable in it and to feel welcomed in it and to feel like their references were being played to, so that if I'm not spoiling anything, later on in the series we can go back and sort of fuck with those references and ask why you're so comfortable with them and whether there isn't anything better you could refer to. It has to like I'm very much ambivalent about my own nostalgia cycle and the cultures where like sometimes I really do just listen to the same 5 albums I've known since I was 14. But I also recognize that that's like me refusing to engage with the world and trying to feel safe and trying to build a version of my own past that's a lot better than my past actually was. And I think,
Yeah.
again, without spoiling too much, that is a lot of what Dead Teenagers is. It's building that safe little world and then messing it up so you can ask, like why you needed it and whether growing up isn't actually sometimes the better option. Is that an incredibly pretentious answer?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it made me think of, something I was thinking about recently, something totally unrelated, and the concept that we hear a lot about in terms of separating the art from the artist and looking back at stuff that we love and that meant something to us, and then it turns out someone who created it or somebody who was in it is a bad actor. And does your relationship change with whatever that thing is, if it's a movie or a book series or whatever it might be? Does it mean it didn't mean anything to you when maybe you needed to hear the message? Do you have to throw it out? And I mean, I think that's kind of like part of it, because as somebody who grew up in front of like a television and movies, like I feel like I was raised by TV and there were so many things that I liked as a kid. And then now that I'm going to be 47 next month and introducing my 2 kids to stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, I love that. And it meant something to me, but I don't want them to see it, or I don't think it'll mean the same thing to them, or it is problematic for one reason or another. So I know that it wasn't exactly what you were talking about, but it made me think of those types of things, whether or not it's something that's nostalgic or whether or not it's a feeling or a friendship or whatever it might be. There's just that re-examination. So no, I don't think that was a terribly pretentious answer.
No, like some of my favorite comics from when I was younger, like I look at them and like 3 of the 5 writers on the run I've liked have all been accused of terrible things. Or, I don't think there's anyone who's my age who's like into genre entertainment at all that hasn't been heavily influenced by Joss Whedon. Some of them are trying to like not be influenced and they're kicking back and trying to write something that's grimmer and darker and, than his work. And some of them are leaning into that influence, but everybody carries it. And I do think that's an interesting question. We learn how to tell stories by falling in love with stories. But having a relationship with a story is not, I think, the same thing as having a relationship with its creator. And you're allowed to like take what you love from the story and use it and learn from it, and not necessarily, you know, J.K. Rowling, pretty obviously for me as a trans person, is a big one for this. Where like I think if
sure.
you look at like so many young writers, they all got their start writing Harry Potter fanfic, and now they feel like they have to apologize for that part of their lives, and they feel crappy about it. If I was a few years younger, I think I would have been like heavily into Harry Potter too. But I don't think you do have to. I think you got something from that work. It resonated with a part of you. That doesn't mean that you had a relationship with the creator, and it doesn't mean you're obligated to keep standing for the creator forever, even as they like go on to found hate groups and like fund hateful legislation. You're allowed to take the story and say that it's yours, and that even the creator can't fuck with it. What you've learned from it belongs to you.
The stories are bigger than them. It's
Yeah.
it's more about not trying not to support anything that they're doing or anything after that. But I think you can't help but be influenced and or love a story. Like once you love a story, you love a story. There's no, I don't think I could make myself not love the Sandman, you know, and like it's just not possible. I don't think I could, like I'd have to like erase the memories or something, you know, because
Yeah.
of like such a huge influence on me in terms of, especially in comics. And like that was a heartbreaking one, you know, obviously in Harry Potter and Joss Whedon. And, you know, I think it actually for me started with Orson Scott Card with the Ender's Game series.
Wow, Ender's
Oof.
Game, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty awful person. And but yeah, I just my list of people that I admire has just gotten like it's gotten so small.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It's really heartbreaking. But I agree. I don't think you can just completely disavow like the love you had for a story. It just is what it is, and you can take that and let it influence what you're doing as long as you're like aware of, you know, the impact that, you know, the negative impacts that thing had, and, you know, try not to let that spread, or try not to, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. I've been thinking about this subject. I mean, a lot of us have for,
Yeah.
because I feel like a lot of names dropped in the last decade or so that really broke a lot of hearts.
Yeah. And in a weird way, like if you were young, especially, like these were the adults you kind of looked up to, and you looked to them as like a model of who you could be. And that's a huge heartbreak. I kind of like think of it as akin to having a bad parent, like not to get like therapy on you, but my dad was like a super bad alcoholic, and he could be really, really mean and untrustworthy. That's just the truth. He also genuinely loved music and was one of the funniest people I've ever met. And I think I look at, you know, my brother playing guitar and working, you know, as a peer counselor for people with addiction and being very funny. And I think, well, he took the good part and then he fixed the part he didn't like, right? He fixed the part that wasn't working. And you're allowed to do that. Sometimes the people you look up to, the people who shape you, fail you, but you're allowed to end that with you. You're allowed to fix the part you don't like and make something better. And I think that's the only thing you really can do. You know, once great harm has been done and once people are hurting, the only thing you can really do is take your own story back and try to write an ending to it that you can stand by.
Yeah. And also, except,
Wow.
you know, my dad was a singer-songwriter when I was growing up, and
Yeah.
he wrote this song about his parents, because his parents were pretty messed up too. His dad was an alcoholic. His mom was really sick for most of his life. And he wrote this song called Killing My Parents, which sounds kind of like insane when you hear, you know, but the song is about, it's, I can't remember where the idea came from. Some philosopher or some Buddhist, I can't remember where it was from, but it was, the idea is that you have to kill the idea of your parents and then resurrect them as who they really are.
Yeah.
Your biggest issue
Oh, wow.
is that you want them to be something that they're not. And
Yes.
so the way to free yourself from whoever in your life is causing you pain is to forget the idea of what you want them to be, and just realize who they are, which is like,
Yeah. Well, Wow, I'm always surprised by the direction this podcast can go in. But I don't.
You
I
can pull up more pictures of
really,
Jessica Alba if you want. There's
yeah.
so many more.
We could always do that. We could just turn this into like a Never Been Kissed podcast. We can go
Ooh,
scene by
there you go.
scene, or any other favorite movies from 1997. Number one movie at the box office was Men in Black. So
Not surprising.
it's
Yeah,
just yeah. Titanic came out in 97, but towards the end of the year, so technically it's not the
exactly.
highest grossing film of 97.
That is the greatest
Um,
tragedy in all these teens' lives. They are never going to see Titanic in the theater.
oh no, they're not going to make it to the fall of 97. But yeah, is there anything else you want listeners to know about the teenagers, or to that you want to tell them? I'm going to have a link in the show notes, so they'll be able to find the information they need to tell their local comic shop that they want it and to order it, and can follow both of you on social media. But is there anything else you want listeners to know before we wrap up?
No, I think we've kind of covered it. If you want to start out thinking something is funny and then get really, really sad, read Dead Teenager.
Yeah. Yeah, I do love. I mean, I said this before, but I wanted to say it one more time for listeners, that I do like to try and figure things out. Like, I do like to try and get ahead if I can. And yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what this is. I have no idea where it could be going. I have, I really enjoyed this. I've had a really long week at work, and I had a deposition this afternoon, and as soon as the deposition, I'm an attorney during the day. So I saw your face, Jude. So I was not being deposed. I was taking a deposition. And so at the end of it, and I was just like, oh, let me read the comic now, so I don't have to read it like right before, because I figured Thursday nights is usually a little bit later, like getting Penny to bed. And yeah, that position was done, and I went and I read it, and it turned my whole afternoon around. I just thought it was so good. And I mean, Caitlin, I've told you before on the podcast, and I'm such a huge fan of your work, and just really the two of you, I think it was just really, really like wonderful. I wish I could say, but the panels of some of the other iterations of the loop, I still think was one of my favorite bits of all the different things. It was very, very good. So, all right, listeners, Dead Teenagers, it is going to be out March 18th. It is Oni is putting it out, is publishing it, and yeah, I'll have links in the show notes so you can get it. But thank you so much, Jude and Caitlin, for coming on the podcast today, and thank you for being so open and letting the conversation go where it went. This is fantastic. So thank you.
Well, thank you. This is really wonderful.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, listeners, you know what to do. Rate and review us. Do all that stuff they tell you to do about podcasts. It really helps. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.